Welcome to Time Ball Games. I'm ELD, here to ask you for help in growing the channel. When we reach 2,500 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away a custom leather playmat to one lucky subscriber. So be sure to like and subscribe. Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Mass. Here we have Connor on Miracles facing off against Nick on Renin 6's last ride. Renin 6 is the cornerstone of this deck, but the Delver strategy will continue on after it leaves. We've got a Force of Will stopping that Renin 6, and now a Brainstorm follow-up. Miracles definitely does not enjoy getting buried in the card advantage that Renin 6 provides. The pinging, less of a issue. Ooh, Stifle, stopping one of these lands. However, Snapcaster, Vendilion Click, assorted 1 toughness creatures are not happy with the Planeswalker's ability to keep them off the board. Tarmogoyf now was really at an all-time high with Renin 6, just having the ability to get Planeswalkers into the graveyard so consistently. The 2-mana spell. Not a whole lot to ask. Even if you just get a Renin 6 out and return a land, would not be the end of the world. If your Goyfs then end up being, 6/7s. Swords to Plowshares. Nick signaling that he has Spell Pierce and then lets it go. We can assume Spell Pierce but no Daze in his hand. There's another Tarmogoyf. Brainstorming in response, and now this counterbalance looking to do some work. Predict. A very difficult card to cope with once your opponent has brainstormed it on top with their counterbalance. It does mean that they're going to be able to have a card floating on top to counter your next spell and also be able to predict it away to draw 2. Hooting Mandrills in response now. So Council's Judgment. And not going to reveal for a 6-drop though. He must have Terminus. That's interesting. Swords to Plowshares gets that Hooting Mandrills out of there. And another Lightning Bolt to the face. Portent blind flips and stops that. Renin 6 is responded to with a Brainstorm, and this counterbalance just doing tons of work. One of the more active counterbalances that I've seen on the camera since Sensei's Divining Top left. Snapcaster counters the Renin 6. I believe there was a stray Lightning Bolt in there, erroneously thrown out prior to the shuffle, but that game was feeling pretty far gone, and Nick going to look to win the next 2. One of the things with Miracles, you really don't want to give them too much time in a losing effort. You really want to make sure you have enough time to actually win games 2 and 3. Depending on your situation in the tournament, there are some times where a draw is totally fine. And those are not super tough to come by with Miracles. Though the deck is a lot faster than it was when Sensei's Top was in the format. Just not as many low quality interactions. The using Sensei's Divining Top was really, really marginal. It was pretty much incorrect to not do it at the end of each turn. Really letting your mana go unused and making sure that you weren't drawing the absolute optimal card was not... trying to formulate this correctly. A lot of those interactions are nowhere near worth, say, using a Brainstorm for. You're not going to brainstorm as frequently as you are going to use Sensei's Top. It's not just to counter something with counterbalance. It's not to assemble a combo. It's really just this incremental change, and sometimes for zero benefit. Like, you're spinning Sensei's top and you're seeing 2 cards plus a new one, and you're leaving those 2 cards on top. It really didn't change anything except give you a little bit of extra information. It gave you an opportunity to potentially see a card that would be high value, but it's not like Ponder, where if those cards are no good, you're going to shuffle and you're going to be in a completely different situation. Very often the mana and the time spent on Sensei's top didn't actually improve anything. It just kind of kept giving people a chance to improve, and I mean, that's not necessarily worth all of that game time. I think it's easy to be in favor of skill being a determining factor in the game. But there's certainly a cost when you're just constantly interacting with a card like Sensei's Top. So yeah, Miracles now has Brainstorm, Ponder, Jace the Mind Sculptor, the ability to replay your cantrips with Snapcaster Mage. There's still a lot of ways to manipulate the deck. Of course, shuffling, predict. Renin 6 here sees a hand with some cantrips. I mean, those bolts are not going to be super exciting post-board, so it looks like a Tarmogoyf can come down pretty quickly. Delver versus Miracles. Kind of a format-defining matchup. I find it to be pretty skill-intensive. Or player-dependent. Be another way to look at it. Very often the better player will just be favored in this matchup. But they certainly have blowouts on both sides of the board. And a Ponder for both players, kicking things off. Miracles keeping. Oh, and a Brainstorm here for Nick. Does he not have a second land already? No, I believe he does. Wasteland going back. I would have expected a Tarmogoyf to come down there and get the clock ticking, but perhaps I misread the hand. Perhaps it's a Hooting Mandrills. That card's a lot of fun. Four for 1 green. Some very serious stats. And Nick now a few turns in, still no board presence. That is not generally how you want to play it. Against Miracles, you usually need to start pressuring their life total. And here we go, finally. This Hooting Mandrills. It's got 1 mana up. Terminus, a very potent card in Miracles. Not as exciting when it's only going 1 for 1. And Hooting Mandrills may be big enough to force a Terminus eventually. It's actually going to get Council's Judgmented. And now a Delver of Secrets looks to replace him on board. That one also gets removed, this time with Swords to Plowshares. Council's Judgment. Not the most frequently played card. It is a mainstay of Miracles. Oh, and he's actually got multiple copies here, taking out this Winter Orb, which was just jammed into a few untapped lands. That's really not where you want to use Winter Orb, but you got to be making plays as a Delver player here. This is feeling, despite the board really not doing anything, this is actually, from my view, starting to feel like a lost cause for Ren and 6. We'll see if that proves to be true, but going this deep into the water with Miracles can feel pretty bad. And we see a couple of Council's Judgments already in the graveyard, meaning Snapcaster Mage could be key here. Oh, and actually Terminus is going to be a pretty easy solution. Going to be able to stifle the Miracle trigger. Yes. Counterbalance comes down. This gets a Force of Will, and now it's really starting to feel a little bit better here for Nick. This True Name is a very difficult to deal with threat. Connor's going to need a Supreme Verdict just right over the top. As I was saying, a Snapcaster would be his most likely path to clearing that. He just has the absolute bomb in this matchup of Supreme Verdict. That is a card that I've caught so many players off guard with very often. Blue Mirrors, they kind of have to commit and overwhelm your board, and you just let them get a few cards ahead on board, finally feel like they're turning the corner, and then you just blow everything up uncounterable, and the card advantage in Tempo Swing is just backbreaking. A lot of the time they've sculpted their hand at that point to just hold on to that lead, and all they have left are counter spells in their hand, and it's just not going to do. We've got a Counterbalance getting Pyroblasted here. Brainstorm in response. There's a Terminus, which at this point is just hard castable. And Pyroblast actually keeps it off the board. Now we've got a Tarmogoyf. Terminus tucks it. Miracles continuing to make land drops, now predicting getting that Terminus out of the way. As a creature-based deck, it may feel a little ominous to have Terminus intentionally tossed aside. You got to wonder just how much you have to fight through in their hand. And Rug has no real way of dealing with the hand. Not like the black splashes for Delver that can go after. With cards like Hymn to Turok or Thoughtseize, the hand is really just a safe zone here. And now Snapcaster stifling the trigger. He is a body. And can also be bounced by Jace the Mind Sculptor if it comes to that. Thinking about the end step here. Thinking better of it. Gonna go ahead and untap. And just use a Mystic Sanctuary to return a Swords to Plowshares or Council's Judgment. He's gonna go with Swords. And get that Goyf out of there. Opting to let him gain the life. And save the 2 mana. And there's a Jace. And this is getting very bad. Now Jace can answer opposing threats by bouncing them, can bounce Snapcaster and allow replaying of just about anything in the graveyard. And now Counterbalance starting to lock it up. Nick shows a couple of more lands and tosses in the towel as Miracles successfully drug that game out to the point where Delver's just out of resources and Miracles had everything left. Jace the Mind Sculptor, Counterbalance, a clock, a fistful of cards, and that is where Miracles is most dangerous. So Ren and 6 not successful in its bid here on its last outing. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.